Okay, we are going to do some more review with solving quadratics, and I really just want to show you that you can solve a quadratic by factoring, or you could use quadratic equations. Sometimes you can actually use both, all right? So I'm going to look at this first one here. Make sure that before you go to solve it, that it is in standard form. That means everything's on the same side, the x squared, the x, and the number by itself, or the a, b, and the c, however you want to call it. So I'm going to try and see if I can't factor this one first. So I'm going to draw my parentheses. And remember, I'm looking for what gives me x squared, x and x. And I'm looking for two numbers that when multiplied give me a negative 10. So two numbers that when multiplied would give me a negative 10 that would add up to a positive 3. Well, it's either 10 and 1 or 5 and 2. I like 5 and 2, but how do I get a 5 and a 2 to multiply to a negative 10 and add up to a positive 3? One of them's going to have to be a negative, one's going to have to be a positive. Well, if they're going to add up to a positive 3, I would think a plus 5 and a minus 2. And again, how do I see if that middle term gives me 3x? Remember in FOIL, the outside and the inside have to add up to that middle term 3x. I see a 5x when I multiply the inside and a minus 2x when I multiply the outside. That adds up to 3x. I know I did it right. Now remember, solve means set this equal to 0. So x plus 5 equals 0. Well, how do you get rid of a plus 5? Just subtract 5 on both sides or bring it over. And 0 minus 5 is negative 5. So what that means is the parabola should hit the x-axis at negative 5. And then x minus 2 equals 0. How do you get rid of a minus 2? Add 2. And we get x equals 2. So what should happen when I graph this, remember I called this the Fury because it goes underground. All right, this parabola should hit the x-axis at negative 5, go down, and then come back up and hit it at positive 2. I'm going to go to Desmos just to see if I did do this correctly. And I'm going to type it back in. And, all right, let me go back and see what it was. X squared plus 3x minus 10. So x squared plus 3x minus 10 plus 3x minus 10. And there it is. All right. Now remember, on a quiz, you cannot use Desmos, but this is just an easy way to check yourself. Does it hit the x-axis at negative 5 and 2? Yes, it does. Okay. And remember, there were really three types of graphs. You have ones that hit the x-axis twice, like this example right here. You also have ones that just hit it once. That's called one solution. And then you also have graphs that never touch it. That's called an imaginary solution. All right. Now, what I wanted to show you is if you didn't want to factor it, you could also use quadratic formula. What was quadratic formula? Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2 times a. And let's look back at our original problem. The number in front of x squared, that's a, so a equals 1. The number in front of x is b, so b is equal to 3. The number by itself is c, that's a negative 10, so c equals negative 10. And all you're doing is plugging the numbers in. So let's look at the formula. The formula said negative b, so if b is 3, that's negative 3, plus or minus b squared, that's going to be 3 squared. If you want to put 9, you can put 9, minus 4 times a was 1, times c was a negative 10, divided by 2 times 1. All right, so let's clean up what's inside the radical. Negative 3 plus or minus 3 squared is 9. And remember, that's a negative 4 times 1 times a negative 10. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times a negative 10 is a positive 40. So we have 9 plus 40 divided by 2. Clean it up some more. What's 9 plus 40? 49. If you get a perfect square inside of the radical, which 49 is, because 7 times 7 is 49, it's a perfect square. That means you could have factored it, but it doesn't matter. You'll still get the same answer. All right, what is the square root of 49? It is 7. So one answer is negative 3 plus 7 divided by 2. What's negative 3 plus 7? That's 4. What's 4 divided by 2? That's 2. That's the same answer we just had a minute ago right there. And then the other answer, answer number 2, should be negative 3 minus 7 divided by 2. What's negative 3 minus 7? That's negative 10. What's negative 10 divided by 2? Negative 5. That's the exact same answer that you got right there. So you still get the exact same answer. So whichever method you want to use, some people like quadratic formula. Now, if it says solve by factoring and you have to factor, then you got to do it that way. Okay? All right, let's go to number 2. I can't do anything with this until it's in standard form. That guy needs to move. So how do you get rid of a 5? Minus 5, bring it over. And it looks like we've got x squared plus 2x minus 5 equals 0. If you want to try and factor it, you can. I know x and x is x squared. I don't know if I can factor this. I need two numbers that when multiply give me a negative 5 but add up to a positive 2. The only way to get 5 is 1 and 5. I don't know how in the world I'm going to get 5 and 1 to add or subtract to positive 2. It can't be done, so don't even waste your time. If it can't be factored, go to quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And again, look at it in standard form. A is the number in front of x squared, that's 1. B is the number in front of x, that's 2. C is a number by itself, that's a minus 5. All right? So I'm going to do negative b, so that's negative 2, plus or minus b squared, that's 2 squared, or if you want to put 4, minus 4 times a was 1, times c was negative 5, divided by 2 times 1. All right, let's clean it up a little bit. So I got negative 2 plus or minus. 2 squared is 4. This is a negative 4 times 1 times a negative 5. That should be a positive 20 divided by 2. So it looks to me like I've got negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 24 divided by 2. I'd take points off on a quiz. Why? You can still simplify 24. What do we like in 24? I like 4 and 6 because I know with 4 I can get a pair of 2's. You can try and break 6 down if you want to, but you're not going to get any more pairs. You'll get a single 2 and a single 3, so 6 goes back in the house. So it's negative 2 plus or minus 2 on the outside, square root of 6 on the inside, divided by 2. You can simplify that. 2 goes into negative 2, a 2, and a 2. So the answer should be negative 1 plus or minus, because 2 goes into negative 2 one time. 2 goes into this 2 one time. You can put a 1 there and then the radical 6, or just leave it. You do not need to put divided by 1. Just leave it, just like this. All right? So that means there's 2 answers. I will accept this answer because that's perfectly fine. I know that's 2 answers. One answer would be negative 1 plus the square root of 6. So if you took your calculator and did the square root of 6 and did a negative 1, you would get a decimal answer. The other answer would be negative 1 minus the square root of 6. And if you wanted to turn those into decimals on your calculator, you could. I'm going to type it in Desmos. What should happen on Desmos is I'm going to get 2 answers where it hits the x-axis, but they are not going to be good numbers. They're going to be some type of decimal. So I'm going to type in x squared plus 2x minus 5. So let's go x squared plus 2x minus 5. So I got x squared plus 2x minus 5, and that's where it hits it. And that's what I'm talking about. You don't get good numbers, you get decimals. All right, so if you can't factor it, it means you're going to get some type of decimal when it hits the x-axis. All right, and those would be the 2 decimal answers. Let's go to the last one. Number 3 looks like it is in standard form, so I don't have to do anything. You could try and factor it if you want to. I know if it's plus here and plus here, it's all pluses. The only way to get 3x squared is 3x and x. The only way to get 2 is 2 and 1. So maybe a 1 and a 2 here, but that would give me 6x and 1x, that's not right. And maybe I put a 2 here and a 1 here. Well, that would give me 3x and 2x. That doesn't add up to 4, so guess what? Can't factor it. So again, let's do quadratic formula. Who is A? A is equal to 3. B is equal to 4. And C is equal to 2. Plug them in. So negative B, that's negative 4, plus or minus square root of B squared, that's 4 squared, minus 4 times A times C, divided by 2 times A. All right? So I got negative 4 plus or minus 4 squared is 16. What is negative 4 times 3? That's negative 12. What's a negative 12 times 2? Negative 12 times 2 is minus 24. We might have an issue here. 2 times 3 is 6. Now, what is 16 minus 24? Isn't that a negative 8? So negative 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 divided by 6. How do you get rid of a negative on the inside? Put an I on the outside. So I got negative 4 plus or minus I radical 8 over 6. But radical 8, can't I break that down in 4 and 2? Don't I like 4 because I get a pair of 2's? So I got pair of 2's on the outside, single 2 on the inside. So right now it looks like negative 4 plus or minus 2I radical 2 over 6. But you wouldn't even see that answer. Why would you not see that answer? What's a number that goes into 2 and 4, negative 4 and 6? A 2. So this becomes a negative 2 plus or minus. This just becomes a 1, but you don't need it. So you could just put I radical 2 divided by, how many times does 2 go into 6? 3. Now, if you see an I on the outside, what does that tell you about your graph? When we graph it, it should not touch the x-axis. That's called an imaginary solution. So I'm going to type it in Desmos and see if that's true. So 3x squared plus 4x plus 2. Let's type it in real quick. So 3x squared plus 4x plus 2 squared plus 4x plus 2. And guess what? It does not hit the x-axis. So that's called imaginary solution. That means you had a negative inside of the radical. All right, don't forget, check the assignment folder. I did put some problems in there for you to do. Nothing but quadratic.